Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast, episode 236. This is the SE Etc. series. I am Chris Hadnagy, CEO and founder of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering, and hosting this podcast since way back in 2009. And I am joined by my trusty co-host for the dumpster fire of all SE podcasts, and Patrick, no one better to be in the dumpster with Laverty.
Hey, Chris, it's awesome to be here. Thanks so much for having me on yet again. As you said, my name is Patrick Laverty. I'm the senior team lead here, where I get to work with an incredible team of certified social engineers. And we do all kinds of phishing and smishing and impersonate-tishing and lots of great stuff like that as well. So let's do this.
Talking about that, let me mention some of the things that we have going on our website. So end of year, I know you're listening to this in November. Maybe your company is thinking about what can we do to be more secure against, and right now, vishing is a big problem. I mean, let's just look at what's happening with MGM, and not just to pick on them, but it is a big deal when we talk about phone attacks. So our company has come up with a methodology to help companies be safe from the threat of vishing. So if you're really interested in that and you want to see what it is that we do and how we do it, then go over to social-engineer.com, click on services, click on vishing, and you can find not only our state of vishing report, but you can find about how we help companies stay safe and secure against this massive threat and this ever-growing threat. In addition, you can find things about our phishing and smishing programs and our impersonate-ishing programs all on the website, in addition to our 2024 training schedule. So social-engineer.com, the sponsor for this show. Go check us out and hook up with us so we can talk about everything to do with keeping you safe. If you like the topic of social engineering, then Patrick and I invite you to join our Slack channel. I'm really happy with it. I mean, it's just such a nice place to be. 1,500 or so people on there every day talking about social engineering. I've had now 10, or I think I just had a new one come to me, say 11 people said they found work through being in there, because they come in and they chat with people and they end up just saying, oh, I'm looking for a new job. I'm doing this. And people have been connected with companies that are looking to hire. Really great that that's happening, but also some really fun, family-friendly conversations in there, all about every aspect of social engineering. So if that interests you, come on over. If you can't find the link in the show notes where it is, just ping Patrick Ryan LinkedIn, and we'd be more than happy to get you hooked up and come on over there. Also, I invite everyone who's listening to take a moment to go check out InnocentLivesFoundation.org. If you're not familiar with that organization, it's a nonprofit that helps geolocate people who traffic children and create child abuse material. It's going on to 6 years, a little over 6 years now that we've been working. Patrick and I both volunteer for that organization and supporting them and helping geolocate people who do hurt kids. And we're a nonprofit. So if you want to see how you can support us, you can go over to InnocentLivesFoundation.org. We can take donations. Of course, that helps us. Or if you have talents that you'd like to volunteer, whether that's helping us geolocate people or marketing, fundraising, things like that, we can use all sorts of help. You can find out how to volunteer and how to donate on the site. If you're a caregiver or a parent and you need to talk to your children about this topic, we have a lot of good information to make it easier for you to be able to speak to them about this. So you can find all of that on the website. And if you like the music for the podcast, it is none other than the best rock and roll band on earth, Clutch. Neil Fallon, the lead singer of that band, helped me start the ILF. And we just love their music, but we loved them way before the ILF existed. I've loved them since I was 17, and they're now going on 31 amazing years of being awesome. And you can go to their website and check it out. We'll put the website in the show notes, and the best way to listen to them is live. So just, look at their tour and go find a show that they're playing at and head on over. I think they're going to Europe soon. So if you're over in Europe listening to this, check out where they're at and definitely listen to them. And last but not least, if you have any topic ideas that you want to give us for this podcast or any of our podcasts, please, you can put them in the show. You can put them in the link down below in the comments, especially if you're on the YouTube. We answer all comments that come in. And if you like what you're hearing, give us a thumbs up and a like, because on any platform that you're on, that helps spread the podcast message far and wide and get into new audiences. And we're really happy with all the feedback and the people that have been listening to this and giving us good information and topics. On that topic, Patrick, what have you decided to give us as the topic du jour?
All right. Well, here's one of my favorite things to do to you is to come up with a topic, tell you of a topic that we're going to talk about, but then switch it up at the beginning just a little bit.
Oh, I love when you do that. I love that. That makes me, that is one of my favorite things to look forward to on a daily basis.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it makes me so happy. I think I'm feeling a little bit of COVID coming on right now, and I have to go.
All right. Well, we'll still get to the topic, but there's a couple other things that I thought would be good to discuss first. So maybe some people have seen this before. Maybe it's new to them. But one of the new terms, because we referenced our phishing and our vishing and our smishing, I saw a new term recently. I don't know if you saw this, was quishing, which is kind of interesting that it's QR code phishing. So it's kind of interesting where now people are sending out through who knows what medium. Maybe it's through email, maybe it's through text, any other way, a QR code. And one of the things that I really like about that is so often when we are looking at our campaigns, we often talk about the principles of influence and what is happening there. And I really want to see what you think about it, but it really seems like that's a huge curiosity one where people see this code and they're like, what is that? And they kind of figure out, well, cameras and the phones make it so easy now. Yeah. We just take a picture of it, tap on the picture, and it takes you to you don't know where. So what are your thoughts on quishing coming up?
Well, we've been trained, right? So I remember when pandemic came and then we opened up a little bit and you could start going back to restaurants. There were no menus anymore, right? And I remember the first time having to pull my phone out and I felt like this isn't right. But then you did it second, third, fourth, 10th, 100th time. And now I go into a restaurant and I see a QR code and I don't even think about it. I whip my phone out and I just scan that bad boy to get the menu going. And I don't know if I've been to a restaurant that has a paper menu anymore. It is literally on your phone. So I think we've been trained through the pandemic to accept QR codes as part of our life now, which in my mind then will make this a very effective attack and one that we'll probably see growing because I remember right when it was 2021 or 22, I read an article about how there were some people in New York City that were replacing the QR codes on billboards in the subway. So it'd be something like a sale going on, or a restaurant was trying to encourage people to come eat or order, or Uber Eats things. And they were replacing those QR codes with malicious app downloads or malicious sites. And I thought, wow, I mean, I didn't want to give them any credit. I'm like, that's kind of genius, but also scary. And then it like people, I don't know, went away or something. And now I think you're right. We're going to see an insurgence of this. And I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to be dealing with for quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same advice that we've always had with just links and email, where don't click on a link if you don't know where that's going to go. And the same thing with a QR code. If you can't trust it, don't go to that. Another little aside for you. I recently posted about this on LinkedIn, where you briefly mentioned the MGM Caesars hack. And some of the news that we're seeing is that allegedly those attackers got access to the loyalty clubs for those casinos, which I don't know how big those are. Those are probably hundreds of thousands of people. And at the same time, how many people have been just to Vegas and probably go to different casinos, hotels, all that kind of thing. And if somebody were to call you up on the phone and say, hey, maybe you heard that there was this recent breach in Las Vegas and I'm calling from the Caesars Casino and I want to help to keep you safe. We just need to take down a little bit of information. Yeah. People are going to go, oh, yeah, I heard about that. And this person is calling to help me. So I just wanted to throw this kind of idea out there that we might even start seeing some pretext off of those types of hacks. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. We're going to see that. 100%. I mean, so if we look at the aftermath from the MGM, once they got back online, Scattered Spider were still on the system. And they even told them, we're in your system. We don't suggest going back online. And Caesars went, no, we're going back online. And then they started taking reservations. And because they were in that system, they did start phishing. There's proof of it. They started phishing everyone who made a reservation saying, hey, due to our recent breach, we need you to verify this is your reservation with 2 credit cards. Please fill out this form. And they sent them to a web form, and everybody who was reserving was now putting 2 credit card numbers into this web form. It was just like insult to injury. It was like gaping wound, salt, lemon juice. It was like, oh my gosh, like these. And so I don't think it's over. I think we're going to see just what you said. Now that they're in that system and they downloaded hundreds, it's got to be hundreds of thousands, if not more. It's got to be, right? I mean, when we used to go out to Vegas, I signed up for those programs because we were staying in those hotels every year as a company. I was definitely going to get the benefits of having 19 hotel rooms or whatever the heck we had. So I signed up for them. Everyone did, and now,
Yep.
your information's out there. It's out
Absolutely.
there. So, I mean, I can't see how they won't use it. It would shock me if any attacker had that information and went, nah, I think we'll just let this one go. No, they're definitely, we're going to see phishing, vishing, smishing. We're going to see it all as attacks on this.
It's all coming.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. So those are kind of some scams. And I figured with this being the time of the year with the Black Friday, Cyber Monday types of things, where everybody's in good cheer, everybody's looking for a great deal. Let's talk about some holiday scams and things that you probably want to look out for. It really seems like it's going to be a scammer's paradise because everybody's shopping online today, and it kind of makes things a little bit easy. And I think we can also often fall back to trust your instincts. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. One other piece of advice that I usually like to give to people, and I especially told my kid about this one too as well, is the difference between a credit card and a debit card. It seems maybe as a consumer, this is one way to protect yourself. The banks might not like this so much, but I make sure I never use my debit card
ever.
For anything. I always use a credit card. And the real easy way to explain that is debit card is my money, credit card's their money.
Yep.
So if my credit card gets compromised online and it's not a real bill, I just don't have to pay it. And the credit card company is probably going to take care of that. Whereas if I'm using my debit card and that gets compromised, that's my money that's coming out of my bank account. That's gone. Maybe my bank is going to help me with that. Maybe not. It might take a while too, where my money's gone. So
a lot of times they don't. What I've been reading is a lot of times banks will reject helping because unless you have 100% proof it was a scam, they will just say, well, how do we know that you didn't get the product?
Yep.
Right? How do we know you didn't get those $2,000 boots that you bought? Right? Because we have no proof of that. So you're just saying, I never got them. I was scammed. And the bank's not like, okay, here's your $2,000 back, because how many people would do that because they're dishonest? So when you use a debit card, I heard too many times that they just do not. You have to, if you have like the FBI or cops involved in the investigation, you have a report that may help you. But a lot of times people don't get things reported when they fall for these. They're too embarrassed. So I'm 100% with you. I tell my kid the same thing. Don't just use a credit card. Don't use your debit card anywhere but an ATM machine and a safe ATM machine. That's the only place you should be using them. And don't put your ATM or your debit card online on any form anywhere.
Nope.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's see. As we are right around our Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of thing, people are shopping online. And I'm going to guess one of the biggest places that people are looking at is going to be Amazon. And that's one of the biggest targets that we see, as well as people trying to compromise that. I think you might have even told a story before where you almost got phished from Amazon.
Get phished. I got fished and I fell for it.
Do you want to tell that story as well?
I'm an Amazon junkie. Anyone that knows me knows this. I do order everything on Amazon. And I was prepping for a conference and I had all of this stuff ordered from Amazon going directly to the hotel. Perfect timing for this fish. And it was not a test fish. It was a real thing. I'm packing my office up. I'm running late to the airport as always, leaving things last minute. And I get an email, bam, says one of your recent Amazon orders will not be shipped due to a declined credit card. Absolutely no critical thinking, right? What I should have done is what I tell every client is open up a browser, go to Amazon.com, check your orders. Instead, I click the link. It opens up what looks just like an Amazon page. And we use a password manager here. So normally my username is there, but my password isn't. So I put my cursor in the password box to have my password manager do its thing. And I noticed that my username wasn't there. And that 1 second of, wow, why isn't my username there, made me go and look at the URL bar. And it was like something.ru. And I'm like, oh, I got fished by Russians. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I remember I'm calling Ryan and I'm like, okay, listen, man, I did a dumb thing. You got to make sure like nothing's bad on my computer. We're going to wipe the computer. We're never telling anyone. And he's like, no, you're going to tell this story to the whole world. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's like embarrassing. I'm the guy who sends fish. I wrote a book about the psychology of fishing. I don't click on fish. And he's like, that's why you're telling the story. And I'm like, logic. So, and he's right. Because it is, I mean, I didn't almost fall for it. I fell for it. I went back to look at it and, there was two things that I tell myself, I should have known this. One, I used my Amex card, and that's bad OPSEC to say this on the podcast, but they never decline. like ever. Like they would, like, you don't have a limit on those things, right? Especially for that. And second, if I had looked at the email, it was for a George Foreman grill and Lee press-on nails.
Oh, nice.
I would have we didn't order those things, right? So if I had looked at the email more than just the link, I would have seen that, wait, that's not my order. Like, what the heck? It would have made me think. And then I would have logged in. But instead, out of the, amygdala hijack, I'm stressed, I'm rushed. And then, oh my gosh, I can't have that order not come. It was just click. And and fortunately there was no malware. There was nothing nothing sent. It was literally a credential harvester. What they wanted was my credentials, which then they probably would have logged in, got my credit cards and, other things that they would have, furthered the attack on other aspects of my life. But, they wanted credentials. So it was, 100%, man. I fell for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we see how often that they're going after the credentials. And I know some people think to themselves, why would anybody want to attack me? And I think you just kind of described it because your credit card is in there. Yeah. And now they can start buying all kinds of stuff with your credit card. Well, what good does that do if they're buying stuff and maybe they just want to do their shopping? Well, they can also resell it. They can sell it somewhere else it costs them nothing. So that could be a reason that maybe you don't want to store your credit card on there. It's certainly makes things a whole lot easier. And I think you also gave another tip in there. I think lots of people now are using password managers, but it kind of saved you there.
It saved
where
me.
If you didn't have a password manager, if you were somebody that always typed in your password, you probably would have.
I would have started
typing. That's a behavior of password managers that's a huge help when they do that autofill. Because sometimes I wonder, is this really safe for it to be doing the autofill? But in that situation that you just described, where it does not autofill when it is not the correct domain, is something else to be looking for as well.
And that's why I always promote them. People are, but what if they got hacked like LastPass? Yeah, I agree. That's sucky, right? And I did use LastPass at once and we got rid of it and I had to switch every password that was in there because we didn't know if my vault was breached or whatever. But, at the end of the day, you're like, I still would say use a password manager.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to save your butt from a lot of things.
Yeah. And anytime that people argue against the password managers, okay, let's talk about now, what's the alternative? And pretty much every other alternative is worse. There is no perfect alternative unless you're some crazy person that can actually remember a strong, unique password for every place that you use it, which that doesn't exist.
I don't think that exists. And, and people will say, what about writing them down? Okay. You know what? Granted, having a paper list that sits on your desk or in a safe or something, someone would have to breach your house to physically get that. So I can say, yes, that is not a terrible thing, but what happens if it gets wet or if it catches on fire or if you're, some catastrophe happens to your house or a thief does break in and what happens then? There are, you have to consider the pros and cons. And then when you travel, do you bring that book with you? Because when I travel, I got to log into things. So now I'm in a foreign country and I forget that in a hotel room,
Right.
Now what? Now your whole life is in a paper book somewhere. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, you gotta think through all the inevitable scenarios and not use the logic. Well, no one's interested in, I'm poor. No one's interested in my life. They may not want your bank account, but your identity is worth a lot on the dark web.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think another protection that people can put into place against, even if they get phished for something like Amazon, is to have that multi-factor authentication in place. I have that on all my accounts, and sometimes it's a pain in the neck to have to deal with that, where I just want to enter my username, my password, and then get in. It's now you got to wait for the MFA. But that's another thing, another layer of protection that can be there even if you do get phished.
And I'll add something to that if possible, I know some companies don't let you, but if possible, don't use SMS as the MFA because SMS is inherently not secure. Use an app or like Duo or Google Authenticator or Microsoft, one of them. Use the one that you like. And you could put usually any one of these MFAs, they give you a barcode, you put that into your app and now you have it there because now it's tied to that device. So even if someone SIM swaps you, they're not going to get your codes because they're only to your device. So you have to physically lose that device to be screwed. And, people say, well, that's possible. It is. Yep. Yeah. I've known people who had their purse stolen and their phone was in it. But if you have your phone locked, like I have mine set up that at 10 attempts, it wipes the phone. I also have the ability to remotely wipe my phone. I have that technology set up. So if all of a sudden my phone's missing and I know someone stole it, I can log in to my app on my computer and I can go remotely locate it and remotely wipe it. And that way, even if they can try to break into it, I have the disk encrypted. I have used biometrics. I have a strong password and I can remotely wipe it. So they're going to have to move pretty quick. Because if once I know my phone's gone, it's getting wiped within 10 minutes, right? And 10 attempts, it's going to wipe automatically. So you set all this stuff up and you try to make yourself, there's no such thing as like hacker proof, but you try to make yourself not the low hanging fruit. And, those tips can save you sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like how you talk about not using the SMS and using an app or even using a physical dongle device, because I think at that point, really what you've done is you've raised the bar to being able to bypass that is probably just going to be social engineering.
Yeah.
It's going to require some kind of, social interaction with the person, which I had the fun a few weeks ago of actually doing for one of our clients, where we were able to fish credentials out of somebody. And then we realized that there was this app that they were using for the MFA. So I called the person up and I called them as the company's IT department. And I'm like, I'm guessing if you go into your app, you see a whole bunch of these pushes that aren't going through. Could you just do that for me? And they did. So, yeah.
I didn't hear this one yet. Oh, no.
It was a whole lot of fun. So I guess that's another tip for people that if you ever get called about your MFA from the IT department or anything like that, don't do it. Don't take a code they give you. Don't give them a code from your MFA. Don't push the code. If you have any question at all that could be real, just hang up and call back, and never call the number that they give you. Right. Call back at a correct
Verify number before you do any of that clicking. Verify.
Right. Because the other thing that I did in the email where I fished the person, I gave them my phone number. So even if they had wanted to verify it based off the number that was there, they would have just called me. And now I got that instant rapport where I am the person that they think they're talking to. So it's another little fun story for another time.
Oh, man.
All right. So smishing also seems to be kind of a big thing. And I think we see that a lot happening. And I think that falls into the holidays as well, where we see things like there's going to be a problem with your delivery. There's a address wrong. We tried to deliver. You weren't home. Click on this link. Or sometimes there's even like a fee required. Maybe it's customs or something like that. So have you ever heard of or seen any of these types of attacks as well?
A ton. Yeah. Sadly, I think if you look back, what is it? The last 18 months, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, all been breached nonstop.
Yep.
I think Verizon's on their 8th, T-Mobile's on their 10th or something breach. So our phone numbers are all out there, right? That's the point. Phone numbers are all out there. So we're going to see a massive increase in smishing. And they're getting smarter. Before it was always like the, meet girls locally or something like that, or just like a link like, hey, do you remember me kind of thing? Now, like you said, they're trying to use things that we are familiar with to get us to click. And I think, again, back to, I hate to keep blaming pandemic for everything, but when we all started working from home, as like a nation or even globally, it became more accepted or acceptable or even expected to be getting text messages from your employer saying like, hey, I need you to put this app on, or, I need you to check in on this or click this for a calendar invite or something like that. So, I see a ton of these, and the ones that I get are, the bank ones. I get bank ones all the time. I get Amazon ones. Your Amazon package, is not being delivered, or something from the driver. Here's a crazy one. I actually got a text that I looked like a smish from Amazon, and it was real. And the only reason I knew it was real, I didn't click on it, is I took the link and I put it in I was like, man, this is so strange because it actually says a.com. And I was like, well, who owns that domain? And I went and started looking at it, and it was an Amazon domain. And I'm like, they're sending me a SMS about my delivery being delayed. I was like, that's so weird. I'm like, yeah, I still didn't click on it. But I was like, I went through and I took the short link and I put it into a link expander, and it actually was an Amazon link. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's utterly ridiculous. But, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm somewhat like, I feel like I should be talking to someone at Amazon and be like, hey, let's talk about this. Cause you know that very thing is now getting used by the scammers nonstop. You know,
Right.
it was too good.
Yeah. I wonder how, so that was an actual Amazon domain that was being used in the smishing.
No, but it wasn't smishing. It was an actual Amazon SMS.
Okay.
Right.
So it was Amazon.
It was Amazon
sending.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it just looked like a smish.
Wow.
And then I verified that it was Amazon. And then I'm like, but guys, like this is too, it's too social engineering. Like,
right.
I've never got a text from Amazon before. And all of a sudden I get one and I'm like, what the heck?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. I think that same sort of thing happened to me recently with my bank. I can't remember what it was. My bank sent me a text. And it was to, I don't know whether it was to check my monthly thing, but like, or it might even been like a doctor's office. Like, hey, you got a new bill from the doctor's office. Click here to pay it. And I'm just like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, a few months later, they called me on the phone. Like, you keep ignoring all of our messages. I'm like, that was real? Like, do you know how fishy that all looks? Don't do that. That's just terrible. So it's kind of silly the way that we're training people to click on these things because I think they're not really thinking about it on that side.
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it, that we're training people.
Yep.
Society is training people to expect this stuff. And I think that's why, and I kind of think of like the younger generation and the older generation, that they're learning that this is the proper communication, which is making it a lot more difficult to tell them how. Right. I was just, one of our clients, I was giving a speech. I was out there chatting, and I get pulled aside by someone in the marketing department, and they say, hey, we've been, really applying the stuff you're doing on phishing. Love this. But I'm just like curious, like now we're starting to see that all of our marketing emails look like the phishing emails, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, now you got to start working on that. Internal communications are looking very, very scammy. And they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to have to figure out how to change that. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to take some work.
Right. You're going to have to start telling people without giving a link, go to the internal portal that you know about.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that kind of discussion argument with my bank. I remember a while back where they would send out that monthly email to go check your monthly statement with a link. And I was just like, we're going to get phished if you keep doing this.
Yeah. And
eventually they stopped doing it. They're like, go to our website and log in so they could do it correctly from there.
Yeah. Little changes.
Yeah. It was also, you referenced the fact that all of our phone numbers are out there. But there's another thing that's along those lines that I also want to point out to people that's going to make smishing that much easier. And the fact is, how many email addresses are there in the world? Infinite, potentially.
I mean, if you think about it, how many do you have? And don't answer that. But like most people have multiple for multiple reasons. So it's not even like you can just say it's one per person.
Right.
And I remember starting an email address for my daughter when she was really little, just so she had one. I can sign her up for stuff, so it's
right.
Yeah.
And then at least in the United States, there actually is a limit to the number of phone numbers that could possibly exist. We know in the United States, there's a 3-digit area code, a 3-digit exchange code, and then 4 digits. So I think that's like 1 billion. So even at a brute force, 1 billion's not that hard to hit all of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of a cost, where phishing is free and smishing might have a cost to it. But the fact that all of our phone numbers are out there is, for one thing, for targeted smishing. But when it comes to just blasting things out there to be able to send 1 billion messages, phishers do that all the time. 1 billion's no big deal. So I think that's another reason that we are going to see more of the smishing, just because there's fewer targets for them to actually hit and a lot less waste.
And I think too, like when you think about that, was like you said with phishing and smishing, a lot of times, like I've been getting some of these interesting ones where it's like, hey man, we haven't talked in a while. How are you?
Right.
And I remember the first time I got one of those, I was like, hey, who's this? And then I realized, oh man, Chris, like, I looked through the number. I had no number there. Right. And then I'm like, oh no, I answered this. Now I'm on a list, you know?
Yep.
And the other day, my wife came to me. She's like, hey, do you know this number? And I'm like, don't answer that. Just delete it. Don't even answer it.
Right.
And I'm like, they're just trying to verify that there's someone on the end of that phone number. And then they're probably sending out millions of these at a time, waiting for the responses. They're taking any responses they get and putting them in a new list for either vishing or more targeted smishing. Right. And I'm like, and what does that cost? I mean, fractions of a penny to send an SMS, fractions of a penny.
And just to know, then you have a list of numbers that are valid. And I'm guessing that there's probably farmers out there that are just doing that and then selling those lists off to somebody else that can then do something with them. So
100%.
like you said, fractions of a penny to validate a phone number. And then who knows how much that they can then sell those lists for as well. So that's kind of an interesting one. Another smishing attack that I was recently reading about that probably requires a little bit of OSINT, depending on how good you want it to be, or you can go a little more generalized, is what if you got a text message from your neighbor saying they got your package delivered?
Oh,
yeah. Like, click here to see a picture of your package that was at my house. And if they did the OSINT to figure out who you are and your address, it can be like, oh, so Chris lives at 1 Main Street. We'll send him this thing from 10 Main Street.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of thing, and if they go even further to figure out who lives at 10 Main Street and like, that's Bob. And it's like, hey, Chris, I got your package from Bob.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if they don't, I don't suspect that we will not be far off from seeing targeted, you know, I mean, like before, you know, phishing was very general. And now I think I read some report that said something like, over 50% of the fish out there are using information from the social media of the target. So now they're researching you and looking. Yeah. I don't think we're that far off. I think we're seeing that now in vishing. I don't think we're that far off from seeing it in smishing either. I really don't.
And I think we're also seeing some of these same types of attacks that you mentioned over the phone or vishing, where they might call you up and say that your credit card got denied, your credit card's expired, the payment didn't go through. So, you know, especially if we start getting really closer to the holidays. And imagine if you're trying to get something through, you know, on the December 22nd, 23rd, and you get a call from Amazon saying your payment didn't go through. And I know you want to get this by the 24th. So you need to give me a new credit card number, and another type of attack. So is that another principle of influence that we might sometimes use or see, or any kind of thoughts on that one?
I mean, I think all of them are going to get used during the holidays. You know, one of the things I always talk about during this time of year is people are spending more money. So sometimes little charges, $20, $30, $40, $50, $100, they may get ignored, right? Because the credit card's getting used a lot more than it is throughout the rest of the year. So, you know, at the end of the month, the bill comes in and there's maybe a couple little charges. Oh, did I actually buy that? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, whatever. Okay. And so, you know, we always think the attackers may want, you know, like this massive charge. But what I have found is that like my credit card did get stolen somehow, recently in the last couple of months. And there was like a series of 4 or 5 charges that were small, like $4, $8, $10.
Yep.
And they all went through. And then there was a huge one. Well, it wasn't huge, but like one for $800. And I'm sure that wasn't the final if it hadn't got stopped. But then the credit card company called me and they were like, hey, is this you? And I'm like, actually, I don't know any of those charges. But it was interesting that they did very fast. They did like a $4, $8, $9, $13. And it's just like bam, bam, bam. They did them like all within a few minutes just to see, okay, is this credit card real? And will we be stopped with multiple charges? And when they weren't stopped with like 4 charges in a row, then they waited like an hour and then they went and did a big one. And I'm sure if they didn't get stopped by that, they were going to try another one, you know? So and you think about it, what, like you said before with credit cards, whatever they bought, they probably got that product and the company is not going to get paid now by the credit card company. So like, and I got my money back. So I didn't have to pay for that. So really it's the poor little guy getting screwed, you know?
Yeah. Yep. It's a little bit crazy as well. I think one of the last scams that I had on my list to talk about, and some people have probably familiar with these, heard of these, but it's also great to get this out there just in case not, is the gift card scams, where we see these kind of things, either phishing or vishing. And is that one that you have seen as well?
Not only seen it, but we got hit by it here in the company.
Okay.
And it's, again, I hate to even mention it, but I hired, this is now going back a few years. I hired a brand new EA. First day she came aboard, I was stuck in a bunch of meetings, and I said to her, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to be able to chat with you today. I know it's terrible on your first day, but I'm going to be super busy. I'm in a physical meeting." She's like, "No problem. I'll get, I'll talk to the rest of the company. I'll get acclimated. We'll talk later tonight." I'm like, "Great." That day, not even kidding, she gets a text message that says, "Hey, this is Chris. I'm really busy, but I need you to do me something." So it matched. I just told her I was busy. "I need you to go down to the Publix. I need you to get some gift cards for my students." She also knows I teach. So in her mind, she goes down, she spends $2,000 on gift cards, scratches all the backs off, sends the pictures to this person. Then she goes back to work, goes back to her office. So later that day, I got done with my meetings. I pop in and I say, "Hey, let's have a chat." She goes, did the gift cards get to you okay?"
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Wait, please tell me that you and Ryan are like pulling a prank on me, right? Like you're and I'm doing this." And she's like, "Wait, you're telling me?" And I'm like, "Hey, give me the phone number." She gave it. I'm like, "That's not mine." "But you have my phone number, right?" She goes, "I didn't know if you had another cell phone." And I'm like, "Oh no." So yeah, we were out $2,000. And that happens. And people go, "Well, how dumb can someone?" It's not about being dumb. That story matched her. I told her I was going to be in meetings. She knows that I teach and I have students. I didn't tell her if I was teaching that day. And I said I was in meetings all day. So saying, "I need you to go do this," it all made sense to her, right? So then we came up with a plan. Like, even though it was day one that happened, it was like, "Okay, listen, here's what we're going to do from now on. If I make a request for you and it's not on a normal channel, you can deny that request until you can verify it with me by voice or verify it with Ryan. One of those two things, right? So if you ever get another request and it's just like, this is weird. Chris said he couldn't even speak to me today, and all of a sudden I'm telling you to go do something. Verify before you do it. And I promise you I will not get mad, right?" So she's like, "But I don't ever want to not do something you tell me to do." I'm like, "I get that. And I appreciate that." But, so yeah, that sadly the gift card scams, and they're being used against older folks. They're right. And there's also another part of this, which, we didn't really talk about, but right now there's a lot of sexploitation scams going on where somebody will be chatting up one of our young people, our children, get them to send maybe a little bit of an illicit picture. And then they'll tell them, "Now that I have this picture, I'm going to embarrass you with it and they'll make them like take their parents' credit card, go get a gift card, or send them $50 or, Zelle something out of their parents' account. And it's little, like, maybe $50, $70 here or there. And we see these increase during the holidays, and they make them do it like once every week or every 2 weeks, but they're doing this on thousands, right? So you get thousands of kids. I was just speaking to a law enforcement agent who, they're doing this operation where they're looking at this, one large group out of the Ivory Coast, 4,000 cases in a day.
Wow.
Right. So you think about, if you just take $50 and there's 4,000 kids sending this group. I mean, that's an unimaginable amount of money that they're making in small increments. And then they just make them do it, every so often. So yeah, the gift card thing it's a real thing, and it's a big thing. And because, again, once you send it, it's not refundable. You're not getting that money back. It's not, you're not be able to trace it. You're sending it probably to a number that's going to be either dead, and they get the money right away. So, it's, by the time you realize that you've been scammed, they've already transferred that money out of whatever the gift cards is into whatever else they're going to use it. So you're never getting it back. It's gone forever.
Yeah. So this is definitely one that if, you have family members or friends that aren't familiar with it, share this information. One of the other nice things that I've seen is like the grocery stores and pharmacies that I go to that have like that big rack of all the different gift cards. There's actually a sign on there that says, "Be aware of scams," and anybody that asks you to go buy a whole bunch of high value ones. And I think there was even one time where I had to do that. I think it was probably for conference prizes or something like that. I bought like 5 $100 gift cards, and the person was like, "Do you know what these are for? And did anybody ask you to get these?" I'm like, "No, I understand where you're coming from. This is completely legitimate. This is not a scam. I'm buying these for myself for prizes at a conference, and it's all good." So it seems like at a lot of stores, they have educated their cashiers to also check if they see somebody buying a great number or high value of these cards, to say, are you sure you know what you're doing here?
That happened to me. I was buying for a class that we teach, our MLSE, our master's level class. We needed some cards. So when we send people out, I'm not giving them my credit card, right? So I went in and I bought, I think it was like 10 $100 credit cards. And the manager came out and I brought them up, and, you have to pay for them in cash, right? So you can't use a credit card to buy a credit card. Right. So I had like the $1,000 in cash, and the manager comes in and goes, hey, before we sell these to you, I know this is an odd question. I'm not asking you what you're using them for, but, are you being under pressure to buy these? And I'm like, no. I said, you know what? Actually, I really love that you're doing this. But I told him about the class and what it is that we do, and that we send students out, and we don't want them to use their money, and I'm not giving them my credit card, and he's like, okay. Because we have to ask nowadays, because that's a lot. $1,000 worth is a lot. I'm like, yep. I said, I'd love this. And I would be happy if my grandma were to come in here that you would do this. I said, that would be awesome. I'd be really happy with you. So you'd probably stop her from getting scammed. And he's like, oh, thank you for handling it, well. And I was like, no, man, keep up that good work. That's exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah. I think that's great that they're doing all those kinds of things. So how about, just to summarize, how can people protect these kind of things? Do we just fall back to trust but verify and make sure we got lots of verification, validation happening?
I think that is part of it, right? I think it is trust but verify, but I think we come back to like the stuff I always say about social engineering attacks is that social engineers are going to try to get your emotions involved. So anytime that you feel a strong emotion during an interaction, it's a good time to say, okay, hang on, let me just think for a second. Let me calm down. Let me just think about this, because maybe this isn't the right path to go. And that's the first step. If you could just tell yourself that, like write a script, write a note, do something that just makes you calm down for a second. Then the second stage of that is what you said, the trust but verify. So you got to verify that what you're being asked is a legitimate request, right? Like, in the case of, and let's use my employee, that's the one step we put in place is next time you get a request like this, if that ever happens, what you got to do is just verify, because that's an odd request, right? And you wouldn't know it's an odd request because this was literally your first day. But, right. and even if she was here, let's say a year, what would have been interesting is that request, she would have seen our company does use gift cards during MLSE, right? So, MLSE wasn't that week, but maybe she would have thought I was prepping. So when you get a request that seems a little off, you got to do the calm down, critically think, trust, but verify. And those steps could help you. They could, but again, as you said before, there's no surefire way, man.
Yep. All right. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. As always. Right. I mean, come on. This was a good topic that you brought, and I'm not even going to ask. Not even going to ask. No, not going to ask.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, Patrick, what's our topic for next month?
All right. So next month, our topic is actually, we're going to have story time. So I think a couple of us recently went on a physical engagement where we were tasked with
what?
Yes. Breaking into some kind of facility. I know people love these kinds of stories, and I think we're really looking forward to telling this story as well. And we'll even have a special guest on with us to talk about it as well. So looking forward to talking about that next month.
Okay. Well, I can't believe you actually spilled it for once.
I did.
I'm a little confused, but hey, until next month, everyone, thanks for joining us this month. Let us know what you think. And until next month, stay safe. See you.